A few months ago, I couldn't stop thinking about the dark night of the soul and ego death. It was as if, in the presence of a forest inundated by darkness, I found a cave darker still. You see, I was facing life's lows, a reality I only thought was some old folks' tale on wisdom and guru enlightenment. But I was strictly and irrevocably so, in one of the hardest stretches of months in my entire life. But hey, if the length of this video suggests otherwise, rest assured that the full breadth of this sobering conclusive thought will be talked about in detail here. A fun fact about my channel: out of the 60 videos and shorts that I made since 2023, none had Dark Souls as the major focus. But the game always had an undeniable presence in the identity of my channel. So in the spirit of returning to YouTube, let's talk about Dark Souls. Or not, again. Dark Souls was developed by From Software and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, created by Hidetaka Miyazaki and released on September 22, 2011, to a plethora of fans the year it came out. The game was praised for its difficulty and world building, with multiple critics and journalists labeling it as one of the greatest games of all time. I had no idea what Dark Souls was since I was a hard-headed kid back then. The only chance I had to a console was with a Famiclone that, to its credit, is an awesome piece of digital machinery. It even had some cool games I just can't remember the names of. There was Pew Pew Bang Bang, there was Punch This, Punch That, and there was a Pac-Man knockoff. But I was nowhere near the time that Dark Souls was popular. So if anything, I just went past the time when the game was in its growing stage back in the early 2010s. That was exactly the time where people were just old enough to know about it and young enough not to be employed. Because, man, I would have missed it. I was just 4 years old. 4! I miss Dark Souls. I have a problem with Artorias, as most first-time DLC players do. You see, I couldn't get over the triple overhead slam attack that he does. When you're decked out with Havel's gear, you would poise it out, but you'd look like an absolute fool standing through a slam anyway. If you came in there with a level 1 bonfire and 5 Estus flasks, you'd be looking at your grave with that setup. But assuming you have around 15 Estus flasks after defeating Pinwheel and a two-handed Zweihander, you'd do okay with this boss. Somehow. Maybe 10 attempts will do. But what if you're like me, who always changed his gear? Knight set to Thief set, Thief set to Havel Boots, Havel Boots to Silver Knight set. But what if for the Artorias fight, I was feeling cocky enough to sport nothing? No armor and any weapon of your choice. A grass crest shield and a two-handed spy will do the trick, right? Now, let us test that out. In my experience, doing the same thing over and over again expecting different results may produce some good results, but that is only after you've gone through pain to do it. It can feel hard to switch methods and strategies so quickly. You'll have to invest time in a different thing, but when you just continue doing it, you will be hooked. Since the sunk cost fallacy exists, it will be substantially easier once you're in that state, but only if the new strategy works. If it doesn't, you'll have wasted your time in another thing for it to just end up the same. In real life, that won't make any sense. You'll have to try multiple strategies and put effort into them, and all you can do is pray. There are other factors affecting the process. You can't expect simple sunk cost fallacies to justify your reason for quitting. Stress, pressure, society, family, your ego. Sometimes you'll have to stick with something or someone for years to actually get the satisfaction of the result. But in the fight with Artorias, you aren't stuck. You can just switch gears, no biggie. Now, the next thing you'll have to get used to is dodging the triple overhead slam attack. You didn't think we'd go back to that, did you? Well, think again. We're talking Dark Souls here. Of course we end with Dark Souls. When can one realize the horrors of Dark Souls any percent speedrunning without first watching one himself? To understand how the birth of humanity culminated in Dark Souls speedrunning, we have to start with the discovery of fire 1.5 million years ago, fueling, get it, the rise of a new species, the Homo erectus. The Homo erectus evolved its way of using simple items that simplify their jobs while being simple creations themselves, tools as we call such things. As tools improved, we became able to fend for food in much larger quantity and quality, with weapons that made hunting possible.
Let's do this.
Thousands of years later, humans derived systems from nature, forming groups and instincts to keep themselves safe, ushering in civilization and agriculture, the birth of society. Machines were being invented, wheels, shafts, pulleys, and screws, turning points of the human race. As growth and expansion exploded, we formed territories and kingdoms, battles and conquests that ravaged and established nations, religions and ideologies, and then Jesus was born, and then he died and resurrected. Pen and paper were our way to document the change and to share our own thoughts. Books became a thing. Science was now our way to rationalize the world around us, and art was our way to express it. History was being made until we started industrializing the world around us, with steam and oil being our currency of energy. Combine the two with a few complex processes and we get electricity, the shocking change into a world where robots and flying crafts became detached from the word impossible and just slightly in reach. The globe was plunged into a race for power, control, and domination, and then the glowing star in the dark of night was suddenly a milestone. The moon was now a mere object and we owned it. As politics and ideologies clashed, we formed treaties, sanctions, alliances, and in some way, peace was now a slogan to preach. On the horizon, a thing called technology was about to embody the future. With the advent of complex control systems, wars were being governed by decoding engines,
Okay, 3, 2.
communication across borders, and radar. A machine called the radio was invented, and we could now detect songs and rhythms from far away. Pop culture was now in range. We could not stop there. The television was made. Cinema? Check. Celebrities? Check. Hollywood? Check.
Hello, I'm Bill Gates, chairman of Microsoft.
In 1986, a tiny but bustling company called Microsoft went public, and behind it was Bill Gates, its revolutionary founder. Together with Steve Jobs, computers and phones would eclipse every single piece of invention out there in sheer numbers, except for the light bulb, of course. Then a genius nerd had the heart to give out his greatest invention, the World Wide Web. Situationships suddenly became a thing. But back to the inventions. If ping pong could be played on IBM computers, then watch out, we now have the PlayStation and the Xbox. Pick your vision. If the PlayStation was your choice, then good, because it's so darn better, since I don't own an Xbox anyway. And in a random corner of the world, a kid into fantasy board games in Berserk would get bored and say, "Hey, I can make video games!" After the release of Demon's Souls, to which the higher-ups of From Software hated, he was given another chance because of its cult-like success after its distribution overseas, and it was decided that they had to give him a chance. Sony would approach Miyazaki for a product that can rival Elder Scrolls, but instead, he made art. It's no wonder that Dark Souls has changed the lives of so many. Just sink in a couple of hours and you'll find how difficult and stressful this game is. But sink in hundreds of hours and it'll make you realize how life is a journey of challenges, and if everything you achieve is easy, then it wouldn't mean anything. That's why it's a joy to get lost in the dark caves of Blighttown, or be entranced by the fixtures and branches of the Great Hollow, or bask in the glory of Anor Londo. A quick check into my PlayStation app and I'll have the info of my time spent overall playing the game, a whopping 160 hours. However, in the world of Dark Souls community forums, 160 hours is a tiny smudge that grants little to no praise, let alone recognition. Upon browsing the web for Dark Souls 1 Steam playtime ladders, you will see that the highest recorded time is a nasty 56,000 hours. Fragging 6 years, man! And yet, as brutal as the truth is, we barely care about the person who put in that amount of time. Do they know more about the intricacies of the lore, or specific gameplay mechanics that can beat speedrunners, or maybe glitches that topple most Dark Souls fanatics? Maybe. And yet, speedrunners with significantly less time playing the game finish it faster. YouTube channels that tackle Dark Souls lore go in depth at a more personal level, and almost all the glitches in the game have been discovered. People would experience this art, understand how it works, and find ways to break it. Wrong warps, sense skip, soul dupes, fog gate glitches, you name it. Speedrunning became a thing, and when you know how to do it right, you can learn how to do it fast. Breaking the game was the foundation, blitzing through it was your decision. Anticipate every move, dodge every hit, maximize every click, shave milliseconds at every possible moment, and beat everybody. You have to do it, because if you don't, someone will beat you to it, and you wouldn't want that to happen, so you have to go faster, and better, and quicker. And when you make it, you will complete yourself, and you will achieve this goal because you were meant to do it. And when you do, when you have made Dark Souls your world, your reason of being, your focus, it will be as if your life is a simulation, and Dark Souls is your real world. And when you quit that game for the night, you will realize how much nothing has changed in real life. You've been a shut-in with little to no friends and no future in mind. When you've been going so fast, absorbing a lot of things, and immersing yourself in a fantasy for so long, when you get out, you're really just so empty. This may be what you wanted, but is this what you really need? I miss the real world. Gone are the good old days when the only thoughts in my head were my YouTube channel, a girl, and Dark Souls. In 12th grade, YouTube was my world, even more than films, even more than books or shows, and not even anime, which would usually be my go-to pastime. Instead, I'd watch Jacob Geller, Exerbia, Nico, if they could make these videos with such beauty, depth, and art, the kind where you just sink into every word, dive headfirst into philosophical ideas, and immerse yourself into a whole new perspective, then I could make those videos myself. If I could have a tiny fraction of what these guys can do, then I could make other people feel what I felt watching those videos. I wanted people to get lost in it all. My crush made me feel a different way, like every moment was just indescribably perfect. Anyway, moving on. Dark Souls was something else. I just can't point my finger on a specific thing, but I'm sure it was something. I don't know what it is, but it's been a long time since I intentionally played Dark Souls. I loved the game, or at least loved it, but I'm not sure what happened. Why couldn't I return? Maybe I got sick of it? I just can't express it in the same way anymore. What was it again? 6 months ago, in May 2025, I graduated from senior high school. 13 years of school was suddenly over. It was time for a new chapter. Me and my twin brother weren't willing to enter college or university like the rest of the country. We hadn't even taken exams or reviewed for any upcoming tests. Instead, we were set on a different goal that could not be explained so easily without surprising people. Most were delighted, even praising our parents for the unique nature of the idea. A gap year? What is that? They asked. In the Philippines, a gap year or a sabbatical aren't well accepted ideas to be taken. It would either be a waste of time since you could be working much earlier, and it would be a waste of money since your parents had to pay for another year for your needs. An entry-level job wouldn't suffice, but our parents pushed with the idea. They decided for the gap year to begin as soon as we graduated senior high. After our breathtaking birthday experience in the heart of the city of Bangkok, our real journey began. 18 years on this earth were now being put into question. How much have I done? Let me tell you, the self-induced pressure is insane, but the real life stakes were also adding to that. By the age of 19, I want to have a business running at least 4 figures. By 20, we will return to school for college. The challenge is huge, the journey is long, but I am not one to back down. 6 months in, I don't own a business. I still only have ideas in my head that will come to fruition if I continue to work on it. I'm sparse in cash. My budgeting skills could improve. In the other aspects of my life, there are steps I can take to better my chances. I've been doing exercises every day, looking more lean than ever. Not bulky and ripped though. I need a lot more work to exceed the potential of my genetics. Pull-ups and push-ups, squats, crunches, walks, and jogs. I've been enjoying my spiritual life recently. Prayer is a constant thing, and I've been trying my best to keep the rosary a daily thing, but not always. I've learned to keep a reliance on Christ that keeps me from an overweening sense of pride. Sin is always a looming threat, but God is bigger than all of it. My social life is actually reduced to a few people, and even with that, I only get to really talk with them online. I don't really have a lot of time for hangouts, but enough about what is around me. Let's talk about what I feel inside. There are ideas and thoughts in my head, thoughts that seem to hold the key to my future, but my hands couldn't strike on the chance to grasp these thoughts and hold on for dear life. If only I could. Inside me is an ocean of blue consciousness where an unprepared voyage into the mind will get you lost. To get these ideas, you must rely on bait for the ideas that effectively capture the idea in its inspired form. There's nothing wrong about catching the same fish that other people have caught. Those guys could grill the fish, fry it, or bake it. But you are different. You make idea sashimi. Same foundation, different roof. That's how it goes with ideas anyway. If I jotted down every idea in my head, I wouldn't be writing much at all. To dedicate time to thinking yields few but deep results. For a brainstorm session, a day at work often produces a plethora of ideas, a dump ton of phrases, book titles, business pitches, clever comebacks, dream houses, and the perfect girl often comes to mind. Sure, I have to deal with the occasional hodgepodge of evil and hurtful thoughts, but I usually solve that by smacking my head really hard. If I get an aneurysm, you'd know why. Hopefully not. But going back, I hope that writing these ideas will work out. I have contractual work at this apparel retail shop until January, and by then the idea is that I'm all good with my business, so I just focus on that. But after all this time, I realized that I haven't gotten back to playing games and finishing them. A month ago, I just got back to the 2020 game Omori. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up crying after finishing this game. But of course, I wouldn't really forgive myself if I don't return to the game. The game. But I don't really know what to do. After a hard and monotonous day at work, can I please go home and lay my shoes by the door and grab a packet full of chocolate and just boot up the PlayStation and forget? Should I play, ignore all the work I'm supposed to do, if it really is work, and just immerse myself, even just for an hour? If I just could, and blur the world away for a single moment at night? I've been taking it too easy on myself. I miss Dark Souls. I hate November 2025. November sucks. I hate it. 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 I also hate myself. And what's funny is that I know why I'm feeling this way. And I know I'm the one who caused it. And I know that I can't get back to the past anymore, and I can't relive those days, and it's over and it's gone. And I know I can make new memories, create a better future for myself, and spark a new journey. But right now, I'm just alone. My parents were gone for most of the month. When they were home for a few days, I didn't have the heart to tell them the sheer loneliness I've been feeling. The bitter heart in me was crushing, and there were moments where I drowned myself in my art because that was the only thing that made me feel acceptably purposeful. After lunch break, coming down from the 3rd floor escalator in the mall that I work at, I fear one thing. that I will get back to work and that will be the end of me. I feel like dying. I feel like falling. I feel like wanting to just quit every time. Every day where every blink gets a little less scary, where every hunched stride on my way to work becomes less of a hopeless facet of the day and more of a gravitational pull towards discipline. The dread of being comfortable in this place forms a vehement conflict within me that exploits my conscience and bargains with me to move every single day. Because if there's one thing I am truly terrified about, it's the fear that my art will never get seen, and my quaint yet promising mark on the pavement we call life will be scorned upon by passerby, not realizing that they have spat their half-eaten bubblegum of shattering words on the mark that I willed my hands to do. In other words, no one will witness my art.
You delivered that baby. You saved 2 lives. And you gave me an arm and a leg. You replaced the ones I've lost.
Don't you even want freedom?
It's your hands. You aren't meant to kill. You're meant to
So,
give life.
your soul has entered you, huh? But will he be coming back for you? That's the end. Are you going to live out the rest of your life as a slave?
That is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood in all its glory. I love this anime, what the heck. Okay, I gotta calm down. I was suffering internally for the desire to connect with someone. I could not truly give myself to the moment, no matter if they were co-workers, customers, or strangers. But what I could give myself in the moment is when I go home and watch Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. The fleshed out characters, the setting, the animation, the scope of it all, and what draws me in the most, that beautiful excitement for the future. Will Edward and Alphonse create a better life for themselves? Will Alphonse get his body back? When will Ed confess to Winry? Will Roy Mustang be the next leader of Amestris and aid Ishval back to its former sovereign glory, or fail? Will it be peaceful once more? What surprises lie in wait? Is there a chance? Is there hope? And when all is said and done, can we get what we want in some meaningful way? And that is Dark Souls at its infancy and beginning, leading into the moments before the end. In the first half of the narrative, we are given a conjured adventure guided by a goal and a direction. In the second half, we are reminded that sometimes it's not always the destination we intend to reach. We never get a happy ending because we end up withering and dying, and that's okay. If we take our experiences and halt them at the moment of death, then that is the true ending we will all get someday. But that is all we get, and that is what we make do with. In some way, Dark Souls teaches us that life is beautiful with the right people, the right things, and the right perspectives. But it can also be sad, quiet, and abrupt. We aren't meant to cherish the sunset. We are made to sleep into the night. In Dark Souls, there is a clear vision on the mechanic of hollowing. As stated in the game, hollowing occurs when an undead loses their mind. It doesn't happen when you die. Take note of that. It happens when you lose your sense of purpose. When you turn hollow, you become like one of the many denizens seen in New Londo, where they trot aimlessly or glue themselves on the ground where they rot for good. Like you, most of the population of undead are corralled into the undead asylum, where they will await the rest of time and die. Every time you fight back, you resist the hollowing. Every time you kindle a bonfire, you live for another day. There's no hope laid out to you that completely answers as truth. It was a prophecy invented to lengthen the rule of Lord Gwyn. What you do have is the choice to see that prophecy, whether you are aware of its legitimacy or not, and take it as your own. It is your choice that leads you to fulfilling your own hope. You're ultimately given the choices, and it is up to you to decide. That's it. However, what we begin to realize is that we are only pawns in the world of Lordran. The powers that be dictated that you sacrifice yourself to the flame and stave off the dark. What is the dark anyway? In the numerous explanations that can be seen online, the dark is both a physical and metaphysical force that controls the idea of humanity and hollowing. It is essentially the opposite to the fire. While the cause of the dark is unknown, it is important to realize that it has existed way before the fire began, bearing the original state of humanity, which the undead all have or are. Not a bad thing, not a good thing. It just is the dark. And in the game, efforts are made to delineate us from the dark, putting us on a path of the flame to which we are manipulated by Lord Gwyn, Framp, and the many characters and NPCs that roam Lordran. But it is the dark that we should not deny, but we should not let it control us either. Where emotions, desire, and terror run through, there is power, control, and truth. While the fire stands for order, glory, and orientation, the dark stands for rawness, identity, and wild ambiguity. But the fire may also be a stand-in for illusions and deceit, the systems of corrupt power that keep us in mediocre comfort, while the dark is the cruel and painful reality and the ability to change that reality. We cannot risk the complete hold of the dark nor be held prisoner by the fire. Neither is adequate. We can equally embrace and let go of both, not as our identity or way of being, but separate modes of existing. We should avoid clinging onto any of the two, thinking that choosing to heed to either will grant safe passage through a life meant to test us. And need I state this? I am not simply talking about Dark Souls anymore. If the previous parts of the video have presented to you the confusions of life, then the next part is informing you of the direction to take within the realm of my own experiences and Dark Souls. Firstly, Lordran is a world full of beings and monsters that constantly attack the player, while our world does not have such things. Secondly, in our world, sorcery, pyromancy, and the hierarchical systems of mystical powers do not exist, unlike in Lordran. Lastly, and most notably, the chosen undead is a being capable of reanimating, experiencing countless deaths. We are only given one life. Now, these differences subtract a huge part of the experiences we could garner from the game, unlike if it were a reality. But that makes way for the metaphorical concepts to fully shine, thus forming a springboard for us to apply these concepts for ourselves. These lessons may have been explored in the past already and in much greater detail, so let me try my hand in reinterpreting these lessons for you. In the game, the player character is thrust into a plot to save the world, where the only proof of concept for his victory is that the ones helping him fulfill the prophecy are the ones who made it in the first place. But it doesn't have to be victory. It can be positive or negative. This kind of story element is seen in popular media and literature, such as Ragnarok, Oedipus Rex, Titanomachy, and modern examples such as Kung Fu Panda 2, The Lego Movie, Better Call Saul, and Dune. Was it really the player character who was selected to make the journey to Lordran? We were certainly one of thousands in the undead asylum that could have been the established bearer of the prophecy. It did not have to be the player character themselves to have struggled and won. In the game, there are numerous NPCs that suggest that there are qualified individuals who are willing to take the burden and fulfill the prophecy. The player character wasn't the sole bearer of destiny. This points to a well-observed realization that the prophecy is a self-fulfilling one. In psychology, a self-fulfilling prophecy is a belief system or a conviction that impacts the performance that was necessary to fulfill it, like how a bad parent convinces their child that they will be a failure by limiting their opportunities and restricting them to unfavorable paths, and the opposite with a great parent. The reason that it was a self-fulfilling prophecy was because the beings who spread the prophecy in the first place were the ones who set the events in place to ensure that it would be fulfilled. It wasn't fate that the player character would undergo and take the journey, but the fact that they did so under the influence of the gods meant that the prophecy was made true. This then takes away from the limitations of a true prophecy, such as if by some happenstance the first flame is reignited by a powerful force that wasn't caused by any action of the prophecy bearer. But this leads us to something problematic. What did the player character truly want? Did they truly want to sacrifice themselves to the flame? Or were they sold a lie and were then assigned expectations against their own will? There was a promise granted unto the player character, a promise that we as the audience weren't even sure of if they wanted it. How would the player character act if they were made aware that Gwyn is a liar and that we are aiding in dispelling the fear of a selfish tyrant? How would we feel if suddenly the expectations of somebody else were plastered on our lives? This is a question that is important to answer. It is the most influential figures in existence that exhibit this trait of being far beyond us, yet humble enough to exist with us. It is not because they have completed their journey in this world, but because they have found a higher cause that resonates with their being, and they walk towards it. They are aware of their former flawed ideas, and realize that to grow, they have to connect themselves to a solid truth or belief, foregoing the excuses and distractions of society. They are aware of their former flawed ideas and realize that to grow, they have to connect themselves to a solid truth or belief, foregoing the excuses and distractions of a society in favor of unmovable values. They are acting on their beliefs because it is fit for their ideal identity. It is not a rumor that Ralph Waldo Emerson is more than just a great philosopher, but a revealing guide into living a fulfilling life. It was his work on nonconformity and by extension, authenticity that granted many the voice to separate their identity from the expectations of the world. While we are existing in this monotonous world, the universe is giving us distinct reminders of the potentialities within us through the countless possibilities abound in our surroundings. Even inside, this feeling of validation we seek in others is never met. This is the crucial sign of the failures of society. The world has failed us, and as revenge, we will succeed on a higher field. Representing this concept in the most definite and straightforward way is the most influential figure in history, Jesus Christ himself. He is exactly as human as us, a human mind, a human body, and most importantly, a human soul. He is the focal point of Christianity and my personal Lord and Savior. Although I will not discuss if his divine nature excludes him from this philosophy of potentiality. That is not the point of this topic. Now, the manner with which he goes about changing the world is one of the most unconventional stories a non-Christian will hear in their life. But it is this difference from other beliefs that make his works change the world on a stronger level. It is his actions that spur most of the world into a walk of purpose. He is the center of reason set for the Christian, and in their imperfections, they will begin their walk on a higher field, another mode. Often, a man is asked by his greatest potential to separate himself from society. He seeks solitude and silence. But the man finds that his new answers are temporarily met. This is the mark of a good man. But the good man finds that alone, he has no function for his fellow man and cannot help them escape the ludicrous society. He must return to the world yet keep his self-actualization with him, that he exists with both states in mind. He is not of the world, but he dwells with us. This is the great man. The higher self only exists when the individual is offered suggestions of discord by the society he exists within. When the individual decides that he can no longer tolerate oneness with the lawless world, his potential seeks an alternative. The individual now begins to separate, to break the calcification of the ideas set by the lies and misguided truths put in his way of thinking. It was not the individual's fault, nor is it the people around him. It was the deep, combined miscalculations of the greater society that began to form the limiting beliefs that would eventually chain the individual into a lesser and more unsubstantial existence. Often we are very clear on what these destructive ideas are, as one can spell out the concepts that define our weaknesses. However, these are mere symptoms that exist to keep the individual in a constant state of distrust against the idea of being truly free. Then we begin to do one of two things: go deeper into the spiral of a chaotic life, not being able to choose a path and living out its truth, or choose to chastise the systems that symbolize the weaknesses the individual contains inside. Neither holds the answer. But many of you will disagree, most especially on the second one. However, chastising the system now shifts the individual to focusing on magnifying the problems and choosing to erase them. While effective for outward intangible issues such as poverty or world hunger, the eradication of flaws such as doubt and complacency will only rob the individual of time better spent on avoiding and resisting these problems. Like the weather, these limitations will always exist, and the higher self is instead focused on choosing to sow actions and perspectives that cultivate a well-made purpose. Instead of slaying the unslayable dragon, we can tame it. In summary, one must realize what one is capable of. This potential cannot be found in society and the expectations of others. To find this potential, one must master the self. One must master the words out of his mouth. One must master the actions that emanate from a well-cultivated perspective. And once doing this, one must use the discoveries found in themselves to assist fellow individuals find their capabilities, like a parent, like a friend, brother, a sister, a mentor, or a spouse, but most simply, a concerned stranger. I hope you find your way out of expectations, either on yourself or on others. Let us return to Dark Souls. While related, this video and the philosophical topics I have discussed at length could be made without the other. But it is necessary to connect them. While the game and lore is vague, there is no doubt in my mind that the context of the game only extends to the benefit of enjoyment. If there is anything that Dark Souls is, it is high art. Not because there are a plethora of ideas to be granted to you all at once, but because the game respects your enjoyment to be able to find a deeper meaning in yourself, reflected through the game. It is undeniable that the game has impacted millions of players and inspired many to find a reason to continue living a purposeful life, no matter how hard it can be. But it also teaches us that we must take refuge at certain moments too, not to seek pleasure or enjoyment, but peace, silence, respite. While the journey is far off from completion, we do not need to rush. We can take our time with grace. The connection may seem absurd, but patience that is vital to the fulfillment of the journey is exhibited well in the game's combat and traversal system. With proper defense, it is possible to withstand and deal with attacks that pummel the player. With enough poise, the brash and devastating blows the player may face is negligible. While the novice may approach the game with an unyielding and somewhat naive indestructibility, the game makes you realize that you can outsmart your way through the boss battles, utilize items to leverage against a horde of enemies, and interact with the environment around you to gain an upper hand against dangerous foes. You don't have to face everything all at once. You can come back stronger. It is worth mentioning the beauty of the locations within Lordran. The vast and sprawling landscapes and desolate towns imply the nature of the beings that reside within. Throughout history, beauty is often the main point of architecture and construction, used to exemplify the benevolent values of the Christian faith. As one of the three transcendental values, beauty points to a higher power, God. In the context of this game, the structures of power and beauty point to the gods themselves. The ascent of Sen's fortress into Anor Londo signifies grandiose valor, while the descent into the depths and further into Blighttown call to mind flesh and viscera, dirt and foul odor. Even in the most hellish pits of Lordran such as Izalith, the structures are designed to highlight the history of the realm these foundations reside in. The interconnectedness of the world is dutifully expressed in winding hallways, shortcuts, and loops that boggle first-time players. Keyword here, Firelink Shrine Elevator. But it does not end there. Aside from the perils of the Undead Burg, the Valley of the Drakes is one of the most ingenious intersections in video game design. Tricky and challenging for the inexperienced, but a convenient thoroughfare for quick traversal. Elements of the game such as this combine to form a game greater than the sum of its parts, and for what it's worth, Dark Souls is one of my favorite media of all time.
I have been writing this script for over 2 months now. As of typing this sentence, it's 5 minutes before 2 in the morning of the 15th of January. My face grows itchier by the second. My wrists are worn out from all the basketball I've been doing for 2 weeks now, and my forearms hurt from the barbell workouts I've been cranking to get into better shape. Although there are some things that haven't changed, I still fall into lust, into the what ifs, into the fear of the future, and my impulsive emotions of annoyance and frustration. I try and I pray that it all goes well. Trust me on that. If given all the freedom in the world, I may still fall back into these mistakes over and over again. But as I hopelessly fall into these limitations time and time again, I'm reminded of the idea of moral responsibility. Let me share it with you in detail.
Let us borrow a sentiment from Marcus Aurelius. We do not hope for anything beyond us. We do not expect to manifest anything out of pure air. That is not the purpose of living fully, nor intentionally. It is our presence that enhances our way of living. We live fully because it is our duty. It is our intention to do so because failing in this task is failing our most accurate mode of existence. If we are called to reason, then reason with logic and belief. If we are called to speak, then we speak with conviction and truth. If we are called to serve, then we serve with humility and leadership. And because we are not called to failure, we will never perform on a level that is not true to our innate capabilities and energies. It is okay to lose the energy to achieve these things. That's why we must rest at good and amicable times. Rest is one of the most important tasks too. But the problem is that we are capable of doing these things at virtuous capacities, and yet we don't do them. We become selfish with our time and energy. If we can assist and help people, then do it. If we can achieve our function at the level we are called to achieve, then do it. As long as what is asked of us aligns with the functions of our abilities, we must achieve it as best as we can. If the task does not align at the core level of our values, then do not do it. When it makes you less of a person, then don't do it. When it calls for you to indulge, do not do it. When it calls you to destroy what should not be destroyed, do not do it. And most of all, when it calls you to hurt a human being out of anger, ill will, spite, or selfishness, do not do it. And if you think that what I spoke about may sound pretentious, remember that this is as much a reminder for me than it is for you. If it cannot make you a better person, know that this mindset has made me try to be better every single day. You can try. It's hard to remember, to apply. Sometimes it's hard to even believe that trying will amount to something. But the trade-off is that you become more temperate, more patient, and most importantly, imbued with such a moral awareness to a higher duty that is beyond you. A calling, you can say. Choose to be better at your own pace, at your own time, steady, controlled, and flexible, nothing too sudden. Give yourself a few weeks to go through yourself. Imagine how your life is playing out at the exact moment you're thinking about it, and let your attention be both attached and disconnected from what is happening. Who are you? What are you doing? What are the things you can improve on? How can you be a better person?
There's no such thing as a painless lesson. They just don't exist. Sacrifices are necessary. You can't gain anything without losing something first. If you can endure that pain and walk away from it, you'll find that you now have a heart strong enough to overcome any obstacle. Yeah, a heart made full metal.
Sometimes, the call to goodness is a sudden thing. Let yourself be surprised. Maybe it can take a few weeks to realize something. Sometimes it happens on a lonely night. Both are as valid as the other. Although I trust that the realization formed from a few weeks has more collective weight than the realization made from one lonely night. But while realizing something, you might want to play some Dark Souls while you're at it. With all that said, thank you for watching. is kind of the spiritual sequel of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, so Season 2 is out. Go watch now!